Both major parties are gearing up for an election this year, with suspicion growing Scott Morrison could send the nation to the polls early. Live now to political reporter Jonathan Lee in Canberra. Jonathan, Anthony Albanese is painting this as a sign that the coalition is worried.
Yeah, Gab, good morning to you. He certainly is. We know there's few things the gallery likes talking about more than early elections. We're not supposed to go to the polls until next year, but there's increasing speculation the government will be tempted to actually hold an early election in the third quarter of this year, sometime around September or maybe a little bit later. We also know the power of incumbency. We've seen it with the Queensland government getting re-elected, also the ACT and the Northern Territory there. One of the anomalies, though, of course, was Trump in the United States. But with the coalition incredibly popular, at least their leader incredibly popular at the moment, the temptation is most certainly there for Scott Morrison to call on that early election. Anthony Albanese, though, on Sky this morning with his sit-down interview with Andrew Clennell, was setting the narrative that if Scott Morrison does decide to go early, it will be about the fact that he doesn't have confidence in his government. Let's have a listen.
When do you think the election will be?
Look, the election's due, of course, in 2022. If it's early, it's because Scott Morrison doesn't have the confidence in his own government to be able to last a 3-year term.
What are the chances of it being early?
Well, that'll be a matter for Scott Morrison. If he does that, it will be a vote of no confidence in his own capacity.
Now, Gab, with so many coalition prime ministers under this effectively administration, it's easy to forget just how long the coalition has been in power. That's another point Anthony Albanese is keen to make for viewers.
We're going to get people to vote for us for two reasons. One is people will always have a critique of the government. And of this government, they'll be searching at the next election for longer in office than John Howard's government had. And people will ask themselves, what was the point of this government? Where's the economic reform? How has productivity been improved? Is their work more secure? Are their wages rising? Are they able to keep up their standard of living? Is there more opportunity for their kids? On all of those, the answer is no. This is a government that has just occupied the space.
Now, Gab, one of the papers this morning talks about pre-selection, that apparently the coalition's trying to get it out of the way to prepare for an early election. Josh Frydenberg, the Treasurer, in his press conference says that's not correct. He's also, have a listen in a second, but he also makes the point that the election isn't due until next year. Of course, saying something isn't due doesn't mean they won't try to bring it forward. Here's the Treasurer.
Well, I spoke to the Federal Director, and that report is untrue, that there is some federal directive about the timetable for pre-selections by March. That is untrue. As the Prime Minister said as recently as last Friday, the election is due in 2022.
We'll of course have to wait and see. And Jonathan, the opposition leader, has had more to say about the quarantine system.
Yeah, the quarantine system is supposed to be the federal government's responsibility. We know the states, though, are doing the hard work at the moment in many regards. He's been very critical about the Howard Springs facility in the Northern Territory and the fact that it's not being used to its full capacity at the moment. It comes at a time when others are talking about the responsibility of the federal government to come up with a dedicated facility to bring the tens of thousands of Australians back home, something which shouldn't be based in the cities, perhaps. This is what Anthony Albanese had to say.
Howard Springs in Darwin has been left virtually empty, certainly nowhere near capacity, for many months now, at the same time as 40,000 Australians can't get home. They're stranded. At the same time as when visitors have come back, they've quarantined in the middle of CBDs or in the middle of cities. It makes sense to have a practical plan.
We've had lots of ideas that have been put forward, but we haven't seen yet concrete proposals. And as the Prime Minister said late last week, he has an open mind, but we have to focus on the standards, obviously, of our quarantine system, and local communities need to be fully engaged and obviously supportive of such measures. So again, it's the state's responsibilities to be putting forward their proposals, and when those proposals come forward, we look forward to assessing them carefully.
Yeah, Gab, with the vaccine program supposed to start next month, it's hard to believe that a year after we first learnt about this pandemic, we're still trying to come up with a dedicated facility to bring the tens of thousands of Australians back home. It seems a little long in the tooth.
It does. Jonathan Lee, thank you. We'll talk to you soon. And you can watch part 2 of Andrew Clennell's interview with Labor leader Anthony Albanese tomorrow on Afternoon Agenda from 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time.